The dust settled on the narrow dirt road as the black stallion came to an abrupt halt outside the dilapidated homestead. Marcus Brennan, a weathered ranch hand with calloused hands and a heart that had seen too much suffering, dismounted with practiced ease. He had been riding for 3 days straight, following the desperate plea of a child whose eyes held more pain than any 7-year-old should ever witness. Little Emma had stumbled into his camp at the edge of the territorial boundary, her yellow dress torn and muddied, her small feet bleeding from running barefoot across the rocky terrain. She had grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength and uttered words that would haunt him forever. "Please, sir, they're killing my mama. Nobody will help us. Please." Now, standing before the log cabin that leaned precariously to one side, Marcus could hear the commotion inside. A woman's weak voice pleading, followed by the harsh laughter of men and the cruel cackle of an older woman. Emma's tiny hand gripped his larger one, squeezing so hard her knuckles turned white. Her eyes, those same eyes that had found him in the wilderness, looked up at him with a mixture of hope and terror. "She's in there," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind that swept across the prairie. Marcus had seen many things in his 42 years. He had fought in border skirmishes, witnessed the cruelty of men driven mad by gold fever, and buried friends in unmarked graves across the frontier. But something about this child's desperation had stirred something in him he thought had died long ago, the need to protect, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. He pushed open the door without knocking. The scene that greeted him was one that would be seared into his memory forever. On a rough wooden bed lay a woman, her face swollen and bruised beyond recognition. Her head had been shaved completely bald, the act itself a humiliation that spoke of profound cruelty. Blood stained her white nightgown in several places, and her breathing came in shallow, painful gasps. Standing around her were 3 people, a man in his 30s with a sneering face, an older woman with a twisted mouth curved in satisfaction, and another younger man who looked uncomfortable but complicit. "Who the hell are you?" the older man demanded, stepping forward with his chest puffed out in false bravado. Marcus didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the woman on the bed. Despite her injuries, despite the brutality she had endured, there was something in her face, even in its broken state, that spoke of dignity, of a spirit not yet crushed. Her eyes found his, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. "I'm the man who's going to take her out of here," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a note of finality that made the younger man take a step back. The older woman, who Marcus assumed was the mother-in-law Emma had spoken of, let out a harsh laugh. "She's our property now. My worthless son married her, got himself killed in a poker game, and left us with his debts and his burden. She'll work them off, or she'll die trying. Either way, she's not leaving." Marcus had heard enough. He moved with the speed of a man who had spent years surviving on quick reflexes. He crossed the room in 3 strides, scooped the injured woman into his arms as gently as he could manage, and turned back toward the door. The older man reached for a rifle propped against the wall, but Marcus's cold stare froze him in place. "You touch that gun, and it'll be the last thing you ever do," Marcus said, his voice like gravel. "This woman is leaving with me. The child is leaving with me. If any of you follow us, if any of you come looking, you'll answer to me. And trust me when I say, that's not something you want." There was something in his eyes, something that had been forged in harder times and darker places, that made them believe him. The older man's hand dropped from the rifle. The mother-in-law's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. Emma darted forward and grabbed a small bundle from the corner, probably the only possessions she and her mother had left, and followed Marcus out into the fading daylight. He carefully placed the woman across his saddle, then lifted Emma up behind him. Without another word, they rode away from that house of horrors, leaving behind the people who had shown them nothing but cruelty. The ride to Marcus's ranch took 2 days. He stopped frequently to check on the woman, giving her water, cleaning her wounds as best he could with the limited supplies in his saddlebag. Emma never left her mother's side, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement that broke Marcus's heart with their innocence and strength. "Mama, we're safe now. The cowboy came, just like I prayed. We're going to be okay." The woman, whose name Marcus learned was Sarah, drifted in and out of consciousness. When she was awake, her eyes would find his face, studying him with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. She tried to speak several times, but Marcus gently shushed her, telling her to save her strength. When they finally reached his property, a modest but well-maintained ranch with a sturdy house and a barn that smelled of hay and horses, Marcus carried Sarah inside and laid her on his own bed. He sent for the town doctor, a gruff but competent man named Henderson who owed Marcus several favors. Dr. Henderson examined Sarah thoroughly, his face growing grimmer with each discovery. 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, numerous contusions and lacerations, and signs of prolonged malnutrition and abuse. He set her bones, stitched her wounds, and left medicine and instructions for her care. "She's a fighter," Henderson said as he packed his bag. "Most people wouldn't have survived what she's been through. But Marcus, she's going to need time, care, and a safe place to heal, not just her body, but her spirit." "She'll have it," Marcus replied without hesitation. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Emma took care of Sarah together. Emma proved to be a resilient and resourceful child, helping with cooking, cleaning, and sitting by her mother's bedside for hours, reading to her from the few books Marcus owned. Marcus discovered that he had a gentleness he didn't know he possessed. He changed bandages, prepared nourishing broths, and sat with Sarah through the long nights when pain and nightmares plagued her. As Sarah began to heal, she started to talk. She told him about her marriage to a man who had seemed kind but was weak, easily influenced by his domineering mother. She spoke of how her husband had gambled away everything they owned and then died, leaving her and Emma at the mercy of his family. The in-laws had blamed her for their son's death, for his weakness, for his failures. They had beaten her, humiliated her, and used her as a servant, all while threatening to take Emma away if Sarah tried to leave. The night they had shaved her head had been the worst. It was meant to break her completely, to strip away the last vestige of her dignity. That's when Emma had run, in the darkness, running for miles until she found Marcus's camp. "She saved my life," Sarah said one evening, tears streaming down her face as she stroked Emma's hair. The child had fallen asleep with her head on her mother's lap. "My brave, brave girl." Marcus watched them from his chair near the fireplace, something shifting in his chest. He had lived alone for so long, convinced that a man like him, a man with blood on his hands and ghosts in his past, didn't deserve the softness of family. But here, in his home, were 2 people who had faced the worst humanity had to offer and still found the courage to hope. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah grew stronger. Her hair began to grow back in soft, dark curls. The bruises faded, the bones healed, and slowly, the light returned to her eyes. She and Emma had made his house a home in ways he never imagined possible. There was laughter now, the smell of fresh bread in the mornings, and the sound of Emma's voice as she played in the yard. Marcus found himself looking forward to coming home each evening, to Sarah's quiet smile and Emma's excited stories about her day. He taught Emma to ride, watched as Sarah planted a garden, and felt something he thought he'd never feel again: contentment. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah turned to him with serious eyes. "Marcus, Emma and I can't stay here forever as charity cases. We need to figure out what to do, where to go. You've been so kind, but we can't impose on you indefinitely." Marcus had been expecting this conversation, dreading it even. He looked at Emma, who was chasing fireflies in the yard, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Then he looked at Sarah, this woman who had survived so much and still had the strength to worry about imposing on others. "I have a proposition," he said slowly, "and I want you to really think about it before you answer."
"No pressure, no obligation."
Sarah nodded, her expression curious and slightly apprehensive. Marcus took a deep breath. "Marry me. Not for romance or any expectations of that nature, but as a partnership, a protection. You and Emma need security, a home, a name that no one will dare challenge. I have all of that to offer.
In return, I get."
He paused, searching for the right words. "I get a reason to come home. I get to see Emma grow up safe and happy. I get to watch you build a life without fear." Sarah stared at him, her eyes widening. "Marcus, you can't possibly want to tie yourself to someone like me, to take on someone else's child, too." "I'll marry her now," Marcus interrupted, his voice firm and certain. He stood up and turned to face her directly.
Sara, I've thought about nothing else for weeks.
You and Emma have brought life back into this place, into me. I'm not asking you to love me, though I won't lie and say I haven't developed feelings for you. I'm asking you to let me protect you legally, permanently. Let me be Emma's father in name and deed. Let me give you both the safety and security you deserve.
Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes.
I don't know what to say. This is so much more than I ever dared to hope for.
Say yes, Marcus said softly. Say you'll stay. Say you'll build a life here with me.
Sarah looked out at Emma, then back at Marcus. She saw in his eyes the same thing she had seen that first day when he'd carried her out of that terrible place. Honor, strength, and an unwavering commitment to do what was right. Yes, she whispered. Yes, we'll stay.
We'll marry you.
We'll build a life here. Marcus felt something break open in his chest, something warm and healing flooding through him. He reached out and took Sarah's hand, squeezing it gently. Emma, he called out. The little girl came running, her face flushed and happy. How would you feel about me becoming your papa officially?
Emma's face lit up like the sun breaking through storm clouds.
She launched herself at Marcus, wrapping her arms around his waist. Really? Really and truly? Really and truly, Marcus confirmed, ruffling her hair. They were married the following week in the small church in town, with Dr. Henderson and his wife as witnesses. Sarah wore a simple blue dress that Marcus had purchased for her, and Emma wore a new yellow dress that matched the one she'd been wearing the day she'd found him. It wasn't a grand affair, but it was honest and true. As Marcus placed the ring on Sarah's finger, he made a silent vow, not just to her, but to himself and to Emma. He would spend the rest of his life ensuring that they never knew fear or cruelty again. He would build a home worthy of their courage, their resilience, their capacity to hope even in the darkest times. That evening, as they stood together on the porch of their home, truly theirs now, watching another sunset, Emma between them holding both their hands, Marcus realized that sometimes the greatest adventures don't come from seeking them out. Sometimes they find you in the form of a desperate child with bleeding feet and eyes full of hope, leading you to someone who needs saving. And in saving them, you discover that perhaps you've been saved as well. The frontier was harsh and unforgiving, but it was also a place where second chances were possible, where new families could be forged not by blood but by choice, and where love could grow in the most unexpected circumstances. Marcus had learned that being a hero wasn't about grand gestures or seeking glory. It was about showing up when a child asked for help. It was about standing between the vulnerable and those who would harm them. It was about saying without hesitation, "I'll marry her now," and meaning it with every fiber of your being.